AEW president Tony Khan talks about the free agent Forbidden Door signing that's going to be debuting tonight on AEW Dynamite. Some possible internal speculation amongst those on the AEW roster as to who the free agent Forbidden Door signing could be that debuts tonight on TBS. Also some interesting information about another free agent receiving an offer or certainly in conversations with AEW, and also has the person that is going to be debuting tonight on AEW Dynamite, have they already let it slip that they're going to be debuting? All this and more in today's AEW News. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is plenty of news stories to get into today. So let's talk about what everyone's talking about, and that's the AEW free agent signing that's going to be debuting tonight on Dynamite on TBS. And Tony Khan has... Well, he's been talking a lot, hasn't he, about who this free agent signing could be coming through the Forbidden Door, even though they're a free agent, just doing lots of hints and really ramping up the surprise debut that we're going to see. Not much of a surprise, I guess, considering we know it's going to happen, but who this person could be. And he has said that this huge AEW signing actually sets up Rampage on Friday. So speculation continues to grow over who the free agent walking through the Forbidden Door Tony Khan was referring to last Friday following AEW Rampage. Now, Tony Khan did an interview with Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated, and he provided some more details regarding this signing, calling it huge and saying it would set up this week's episode of AEW Rampage on TNT. This is what Tony Khan had to say, quote, "It's a huge signing for us. I've created some debate about what it means to open the Forbidden Door, and that's what we're going to do on this show. The fans are going to get a great night of wrestling, and I hope everyone is surprised and comes back for the matches this sets up. We're going to do the big reveal on Dynamite. It sets up Rampage and puts a lot of irons in our fire. We have created an environment in AEW where people routinely expect great wrestling matches, and we have the wrestlers to live up to those high expectations." So obviously, if you're not familiar, following last Friday's AEW Rampage, Tony Khan announced that Isaiah Cassidy would wrestle a new free agent signing on Dynamite to determine who would qualify for the Face of the Revolution ladder match taking place at AEW Revolution. He would later elaborate that the signing would be the same person who Khan earlier in the night said would be walking through the Forbidden Door. Now, there was a bit of confusion about this because the Forbidden Door term is usually used for talents from the likes of New Japan or Impact Wrestling or AAA, etc., working for AEW or vice versa. The NWA has fallen into that category as well. Since then, several names on the free agent market, New Japan and even WWE, have been rumoured as the potential signing to debut tonight on TBS. Now, Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter reported on Friday that free agent Keith Lee was either in talks or had already signed a deal with AEW, making him a potential candidate. Matt Hardy has done some teasing about Jeff Hardy as well, which we'll talk about later on in this video. So there's been lots of speculation as to who this person could be. It's a curious one, isn't it? We'll talk about it in a second because Fightful selected a really good report as to who those on the AEW roster think it will be. And I don't know. At this point, I really don't know. I think the most likely answer is probably Keith Lee, to be honest with you. The other day I was thinking Jeff Hardy, and a lot of people are saying that Jeff Hardy's unlikely because of obviously the 90-day non-compete clause, and I would lean into that a bit like when you remember when they were saying that Wyndham Rotunda, Bray Wyatt was going to debut on Dynamite before his non-compete clause was up, and everyone went, well, that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. His non-compete clause hasn't expired there. Or when they were talking about Buddy Murphy going to Impact Wrestling when his 90-day non-compete clause hadn't expired at that period of time. It's the same when it comes to Jeff Hardy, isn't it? The only reason I thought it might be slightly different when it comes to Jeff is obviously the drug test issue, in the fact that WWE released him because Jeff Hardy refused to attend rehab. He didn't feel he needed to. He took a drug test. He passed. But the test took so long to come back. By the time it came back, WWE realized that they probably jumped the gun when it came to releasing him for refusing to attend rehab because he didn't need to attend rehab. And I felt that maybe Jeff Hardy and maybe his lawyers, we know that Matt Hardy had said that Jeff Hardy had spoken with lawyers to get his drug test back after not getting it back for 6 weeks. I felt that maybe there was a possible sort of legal case for Jeff, so he could say, well, I was wrongfully terminated. They terminated me because they said I had to go to rehab when I didn't, and I passed a drug test, so why would I have to attend rehab? There could be some litigation there, or certainly WWE would be more open to having his 90-day clause be either waived or be bought out. I mean, we know that Andrade, right, when Andrade was released by WWE around this time last year, just before WrestleMania, he had his 90-day non-compete clause waived then. Now, we don't really know the reasons why, but there are certainly reasons why, and usually they are WWE fearing some kind of litigation or legal ramification. So I still think there is a possibility for Jeff. I think he's less likely than the likes of Keith Lee. I don't know if I necessarily see it being Bray Wyatt or Braun Strowman or someone like that. I think the interesting part of it as well is when people say, when Tony Khan rather has said that it will set up Rampage on Friday. I'm not sure what that would set up necessarily. The only thing I can think that would set up is that we see a lot of Private Party and the Hardy family office on Rampage. So if Jeff Hardy made his debut tonight, that certainly would set up have some ramifications for Friday, it would appear. So I'm not sure. And we also know that on Friday we're going to get an AEW World Tag Team match between Jurassic Express and the Gun Club. If Jurassic Express win, but the Hardy Boys are back together, that makes a lot of sense that they suddenly would set up something for Friday as well. So even though I don't think it probably is Jeff Hardy, I think it's more likely to be Keith Lee. I still think it's interesting, and obviously a lot of people are talking about it right now. And that's why we're going to talk about this report from Fightful Select, who have actually got a really interesting perspective on this, because it's one thing for us as fans to speculate as to who this free agent signing is going to be, this Forbidden Door free agent signing is going to be. It's another thing to figure out who do those on the AEW roster, who do they think this free agent signing is going to be. So Fightful Select are reporting that Fightful have spoken to numerous talent on the All Elite Wrestling roster, and they're saying, in fairness to them, and they would know because they have a lot of scoops when it comes to this kind of information, they're saying that from everyone they've spoken to on the AEW roster, which is numerous talents, none of which know who the surprise is actually slated to be, with several talent reaching out to actually Fightful themselves to ask if they know. So you've got people on the AEW roster, they're actually reaching out to Fightful, and people like Sean Ross Sapp going, do you know who it's going to be? Now, thus far, they haven't confirmed the identity, but talent on the AEW roster is unanimously speculating that it's going to be Keith Lee. There was at least one wrestler who was confused on the terminology of Forbidden Door, saying that gave them the assumption that it was someone who recently or was actively working for another company, and that was kind of my confusion, and I think a lot of other people's confusion with Tony Khan's phrasing when it came to that. Fightful are saying that those that they spoke to in AEW upon free agency initially weren't sold that Keith Lee would be coming to AEW, but that many discussions regarding the possibility seem to grow optimistically as time has gone on. Despite the speculation regarding Keith Lee, nobody that Fightful has actually talked to has been given any particular indication that it is him. That's just speculation and just a working assumption. They don't know that to be a fact. They haven't spoken to Keith Lee. They haven't spoken to Tony Khan. It's just a case of that seems likely, and I think that likelihood actually stems from Dave Meltzer, who said that Keith Lee was likely coming into AEW, or he'd already signed a contract. Now, they also mentioned again, they haven't learned specifically who the Wednesday night surprise is, but they've been also told Fightful that it's pretty firmly not going to be Jeff Hardy, because of that aforementioned 90-day non-compete clause, which expires in March. Matt and Jeff Hardy, of course, do have several appearances set up for that date. They can also confirm that WWE did make overtures towards getting Jeff Hardy back into the company after his firing, which we'd spoken about previously here on the channel. So, again, the working assumption is that it probably is Keith Lee, but that doesn't come from any place of real fact, or doesn't come from any place of real knowledge. That's pure speculation. So, I think it's fascinating, the idea that everyone on the AEW roster is keeping this very, very close to the vest, to the point where it's like, people that you would usually know don't know. They're reaching out to the dirt sheets to say, do you know? Because they're eager to find out like everyone else. They're reaching out to Sean Ross Sapp going, do you have any idea who it's going to be? And I think, like I said, this rumor or this speculation that Keith Lee is the likely signing, if anything, it just stems from Dave Meltzer's story. Apart from that, there's no real evidence to go off that it could be him. There are so many people that are free agents right now, whether it is Keith Lee, whether it is, the Jeff Hardy situation. We don't really know that transparently. They're saying it's not going to happen, Fightful, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. Obviously, it could be Bray Wyatt. I don't really get the logic of debuting Bray Wyatt against Isaiah Cassidy in a ladder match qualifying match. I think he'd be doing something a lot different than that, but who knows? Braun Strowman, again, that would be odd, but who's to say it won't be him? Karrion Kross. there are so many names that it realistically could be. And we're just assuming that they're free agents. Tony Khan spoke about the Forbidden Door. Who's to say they aren't someone that's currently signed to Impact Wrestling? Who's to say it's not Josh Alexander? Who's to say it's not Moose? Who's to say it's not someone from New Japan Pro Wrestling like Jay White? Who's to say it's not, Ospreay? It could be so many people. And I think that's really where the discussion point is coming from. Not only does nobody know, and even people within AEW on the roster, they don't know. But on top of that, there are so many options to pick from. I think if this were, a year or so ago, there would be this discussion of, well, there aren't many free agents, so there's only really one person it could be, and that would be the one big free agent that's out there at the time. Now that there's so many, there's real selection to pick from, and it makes it even more interesting and even more of a bigger discussion point. So it really is fascinating. And one name it could be is the former Isaiah Swerve Scott, obviously Swerve Strickland, easy for me to say, reportedly, according to Fightful Select, does have a lot of options available to him. This is according, once again, from Fightful Select. Now, ever since that WWE released Isaiah Swerve Scott, Fightful have been hearing about promoters inquiring as to his status and what he wants out of a deal when it comes to their prospective companies. Now, they've also heard directly from higher-ups within multiple companies that that have asked about bringing him in, with plans already in order already from at least one major company to work with him in some capacity. So a lot of companies are reaching out to him, and on top of that, one company already has plans to feature him prominently when or if he decides to come into that company. Now, specifically, this is why we're talking about it from an AEW point of view here. Specifically, Fightful Select have been told and are reporting that AEW asked about Swerve's status extremely early in his free agency to gauge when he would be available. Now, they're also reporting that New Japan Pro Wrestling USA has also made a very firm overture to him in regards to using him in the future, and most expect MLW to make an effort if they haven't already. So, there are so many people that are interested in him. I think he's one of the more hot free agents, considering his work in NXT. And universally, I think a lot of people felt that the gimmick was money, right? Hit row, and everyone was really surprised, not necessarily to see it fail on the main roster, because it was way too current and way too modern for Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard to understand at all. I'm not exactly surprised that it failed. I'm surprised that they released him because there was money there to be made that they didn't make. Nevertheless, every other promoter with eyes can see Isaiah Swerve Scott and maybe not see, physically, is he anything to write home about? No, but his matches are unbelievable. His mic skills improved tremendously. And like I said, he's current. He's modern. He's on the pulse of pop culture right now. And I think people like AEW, people like New Japan, people like MLW see that and they go, there's money to be made there. I think it's curious that this report comes out around the same time that we're possibly looking at this person that could be appearing in a ladder match. That makes a lot of sense, considering when you think about it, right? I mean, we're talking about a ladder match, so he would fit perfectly into a ladder match kind of situation. So that's curious too. I don't think it's going to be Isaiah Swerve Scott tonight, because I do think I'm leaning more towards Keith Lee. I'm still reaching out. I think the Jeff Hardy thing isn't an impossibility, it must be said. So I don't think it's going to be Isaiah Swerve Scott. But ultimately, where do I think he'll end up? I think he'll end up in AEW. I think most times now, if AEW wants someone, they tend to get them. That's because of the reputation they currently have, the money they also have. But also, you could see a similar situation to maybe a Buddy Matthews, where actually he doesn't want to be tied down to one company in particular. And because of that, he wants to work the indies and work for numerous promotions as opposed to one to get his reps in, if you will. But I think that obviously it appears that there's a bidding war, and I think if any company that isn't WWE gets into a bidding war with AEW, AEW tends to win that bidding war. But good for him, because like I said, he's money. He's absolute money. Now, speaking of Jeff Hardy, I spoke about the possibility that Jeff Hardy might be this surprise Forbidden Door free agent signing. And again, the only reason I'm saying the Jeff Hardy situation is because, again, of the circumstances in which he left WWE, the drug test which he passed, and having to go through a lawyer to get it back, and then WWE trying desperately to get him back when it comes to Hall of Fame induction, an offer to return to the company, all that kind of stuff. And the phrase a Forbidden Door signing, like he was recently contracted to WWE, and like really recently, and then maybe Tony Khan did buy out the contract. I don't know. That's the only reason I'm kind of leaning to that, as saying, well, it's not impossible. And Matt Hardy's kind of continued to tease this. And also you have to look at the opponent, right? The opponent is someone from the Matt Hardy, the AHFO, the Andrade Hardy family office in Isaiah Cassidy as being the opponent. So again, that does it links up a lot. There's lots of things that cross over there. Well, on his Monday Twitch stream, Matt Hardy did actually tease that Jeff Hardy could be that person. One name, as mentioned, that has been floated around as a potential new AEW star is Matt Hardy's brother, Jeff Hardy, who was released from WWE in December under controversial circumstances. At first, Matt Hardy suggested that Jeff would not be the guy to wrestle Cassidy. He was currently aligned with Hardy in the AHFO. He quickly, however, clarified that it wasn't out of the realm of possibility. He said, quote, "As far as an update on Jeff and what's going on, I don't think he's the guy that's coming in Wednesday against Isaiah Cassidy, although who knows? Tony Khan, Papa Khan's got a lot of money. Maybe he bought out his contract. Maybe it is happening early. Who knows?" Again, I've sort of said everything I need to say when it comes to Jeff Hardy possibly being that guy. I don't think it's impossible. I don't. Again, I look at the things that make sense in that situation. Again, logically, the thing that makes the most sense is it being Keith Lee. And I'm probably going to settle on Keith Lee being my prediction as to who this person could be. But I don't think Jeff Hardy's an impossibility. I know the 90-day non-compete clause hasn't expired, but I think the circumstances considering his departure, I think that the opponent, it being Isaiah Cassidy, I think Matt Hardy's sort of rumblings on social media that he's been doing, I think Isaiah Cassidy, some of the things he's been saying on social media as well, I think all of it, it's not impossible. That's all I'll say. It's not impossible. Finally, another person it could be, Karrion Kross along with Scarlet Bordeaux. Could they be about to make their AEW Dynamite debut tonight on TBS? Well, free agents Killer Kross, Karrion Kross, and Scarlet Bordeaux might have actually accidentally let slip that there are plans for them appear on Dynamite tonight in Atlantic City. Now, earlier in the week, the pro wrestling couple took part in an autograph signing where the host inquired if they were going to be traveling to Atlantic City for Dynamite. And the host could be heard saying, quote, "Maybe you'll be in Atlantic City, who knows?" While Kross brushed off that question by staring at the camera, Bordeaux could be heard responding, "Oh, is that... ... Kross immediately stared and looked at his fiancée, prompting her to break into a laughter. As Bordeaux tried to hold back her laughter, Kross uttered the words, "Holy shit," repeatedly. So... you never know. I don't think it's them, although I do think they could end up in AEW eventually. And I think that Karrion Kross at some point will end up there eventually. I'm not sure how people would react, to be honest with you, of it being Karrion Kross. I think some people might say that would be a bit of a letdown, which I don't think is particularly fair. I think Karrion Kross is funny because he's quite a divisive figure in the sense that even when he was NXT champion, not doing jobs, beating everyone, being pushed super hard, there were people that doubted him and people that weren't massive fans of him. So I'm not sure what the reaction necessarily would be, but I, like everyone else, when you looked at those people that were on Raw, Keith Lee, Karrion Kross, that were released, Isaiah Swerve Scott, who was of course on SmackDown, those guys were money, and those were really baffling ones where it was like, how did you get that wrong? And there's money to be made there. Like I said about Isaiah Swerve Scott, there's money to be made there, especially with Keith Lee, Karrion Kross, Isaiah Swerve Scott, and I think all of them will end up in AEW eventually. I really do. But look, guys, let me know who you think the Forbidden Door free agent signing is going to be in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestle News 365. I'm pondering maybe going live after Dynamite tonight, depending on who this big free agent signing is. So we'll keep an eye out for that one. So be sure to subscribe, click the notification bell, and you'll be notified when we do any upload or we go live. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.